Scrutiny Committee, the first of the new term, as it were. A warm welcome back to previous members of the committee. Good to see familiar faces and to see you in person, which is lovely in these glorious surroundings. And a particular welcome to the new members this evening. I hope this will be an interesting, stimulating committee. I'm sure you'll participate well and will benefit from your own particular skills and knowledge and interests. So welcome everybody. I'm sure Councillor Mitchell will join me in offering our warmest welcome. And also to people watching on the live stream at home, you're very welcome too. We start with agenda item 1, which is apologies. Howard, do we have some apologies?
Apologies received from Councillor Martin and Councillor Quads.
Councillor Martin and Councillor Quads, apologies received. Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 2, which are the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of April 2021. For those of you who were members of the committee then, which I think is not that many, but a few, can we pass these as an accurate, correct record of that meeting, please? Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I think we are happy with those, so we'll sign those off. Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillors are reminded of the need to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests that relate to business on the agenda which have not already been included in the register of interests before any discussion takes place on the item. Unless the interest is sensitive, you must also disclose the nature of the interest. In accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct, you must then leave the room and must not participate in any further discussion of the item. Councillors requiring clarification should seek the advice of the monitoring officer prior to the day of the meeting. Just our usual reminder on that item. Item 4 is the Local Government Access to Information Act, exclusion of press and public. I'm not aware of any items this evening that will fall under that, so we won't need to vote on that. Item 5 is questions from the public under Standing Order 19. We haven't received any questions from the public on this occasion. We do welcome those and hope there will be some in the future. Item 6 is the questions from members of the Council under Standing Order 20. Thank you to everybody who's posted those in advance, which is very, very helpful. It enables us to get full answers and give time to officers to prepare information. So thank you to those. If the people responding to questions could come up to the lectern, that would help, I think, in terms of the sound and the camera this evening. That would be brilliant. The councillors who are posing the questions can stay put, because I think you're within the kind of purview of the camera and you've got your own mics, so that should be fine. Just the people answering, whether that's officers or portfolio holders. So we have, first of all, a question to Councillor Laura Wright, the portfolio holder for Council Housing Development and Services, and that's from Councillor Michael Mitchell.
Thank you. Can the portfolio holder provide an update regarding the Council House building programme for the next 5 years and clarify whether the targets are realistic?
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Members will be aware that a very ambitious council house building target was set and agreed last year of 500 new homes over a 10-year period. A target which balanced the council's ambition of increased supply with that of also retrofitting and maintaining our existing properties. So I am pleased to report that substantial progress has been made with the development programme. So I can confirm that 75 properties have either been completed and occupied or will be completed within the next 3 months. 92 properties have planning approval and are at the tender stage of development, with development work anticipated to commence later this year or early 2022. 22 properties have had detailed feasibility work completed and will be progressing to the planning committee later this year. A potential sites list which could yield 239 properties over 9 locations is being subjected to a detailed development appraisal with our development partner, Exeter City Living, and we anticipate a detailed development programme resulting from this. As such, I'm able to confirm that 428 properties and potential sites currently form our development plan and demonstrates excellent progress in year 2 of our 10-year target. The second part of your question as to whether our targets are realistic, I would like to say, who knows, what we've seen from the last year. We don't know what's around the corner, we don't know what's going to happen that could knock any of our plans for anything a little bit sideways. But I would like to say that based on this data so far, they are realistic targets. We may complete earlier than the 10-year period, which is of course what we would hope, but we set that 10-year period in order to be realistic. So I hope that answers your question, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wright. Councillor Mitchell, do you have a follow-on question?
Supplementary. In the portfolio holder's view, what needs to be done to allow Exeter City Council to build more housing to meet local needs?
Councillor Mitchell, sorry, do you mean council housing?
Council housing, yes.
What more could be done? I appreciate your question, but I think at the moment we're doing quite a lot already. What more could be done would be for us to be able to meet the targets that we've set of the 500 houses, and hopefully while doing that we might find further opportunity to be able to actually build more and develop more. There's a possibility that that indeed could happen, but at the moment that's part of the feasibility studies. So more massing is one of the things that we could be doing to build more.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wright. Thank you for your question, Councillor Mitchell. That moves us straight on to a question to the portfolio holder for supporting people. That's Councillor Williams. And the question is from committee member Councillor Yvonne Atkinson. Councillor Atkinson.
Are you Exeter City Community Trust Initiative plans to offer around 100 A new Exeter City Community Trust Initiative plans to offer more than 100 supported accommodation places across several wards in the city, including my own, which is Alphington, to partners including Exeter City Council.
Sorry, it looks like it's now come on. There's some problem there. At the risk of people who've heard that repetition, do you mind starting again, Councillor Atkinson, particularly for the camera?
Third time lucky. Okay, thank you. A new Exeter City Community Trust Initiative plans to offer more than 100 supported accommodation places across several wards, including my own and Alphington, to partners, including Exeter City Council. Myself and Ben Bradshaw, our local Labour MP, have been made aware of some issues for vulnerable current residents who are to be evicted to make way for the new scheme. What housing advice is given to single men and women on a low income with a history of vulnerability as when they are threatened with eviction? Is available accommodation affordable if there is a gap between provision and housing such that it could lead to homelessness and hardship? As a city, how can we work with the private sector and social landlords and other agencies and housing advice services to improve the situation in the short to medium term? In particular, what lessons can the City Council team learn from housing schemes like the Exeter Community Trust Initiative? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson, and well done for getting 4 questions in under the one that I think I've been asked to answer. So I am going to take it in 4 stages. There's quite a lot of detail, so don't worry, people are present and viewing. Well, certainly the council's present, because I'm going to circulate the written answer, so you've got all the detail. So, yes, there's quite a lot to read out here. So I'll take the first part first, which is what housing advice is given to single men and women on low income with a history of vulnerabilities when they're threatened with eviction. Before I start that, I think it's worth for me clarifying that we've had separate communications over this particular example that you alluded to in terms of an individual threatened with eviction. So we'll keep that separate. I'm just going to answer the housing advice to single men and women on low income. Anyone threatened with eviction will be offered either an appointment with a casework officer or will be passed to an officer to deal with that day if their situation is urgent. The casework officer will then make an assessment in accordance with housing legislation to see if they are threatened with homelessness. Sometimes landlords threaten eviction, and where these are not lawful, so the officer will then work with the landlord to try and avoid eviction if possible. Depending on timescales, a prevention or relief duty is likely to be taken. The casework officer will work through a personal housing plan to help the client either stay in their home if possible and reasonable to do so, or to help them find a new home before they're homeless if this is possible. The casework officer will make an assessment of any vulnerabilities and signpost to additional services if needed. If the client has debt issues, then they could be referred to a homemaker or the Citizens Advice Bureau. If the client has mental health difficulties, they may be supported to get additional help from their GP. If a client is homeless, then the casework officer will assess to see if there is a legal duty to provide emergency temporary accommodation. The officer will see if there is a reason to believe the client has a priority need. Not all vulnerabilities are classed as a priority need, and the casework officer may need to make inquiries to find out more information. If the client does not have a priority need, then a temporary accommodation will be offered, and the casework officer will work on a pathway plan so that the client finds permanent accommodation as quickly as possible. Then your second part question was, is available accommodation in Exeter affordable? Well, as many other parts of the country, the cost of accommodation is high due to basic demand and supply issues. Exeter, as a reasonably affluent city, has significant housing capacity pressures, one of which is affordability, given local market property prices and rents. Added competition for private rented housing from professionals and the student market seeking city centre accommodation adds to the supply issue and therefore affordability. Anyone living in Exeter who is entitled to means-tested benefits may be able to claim either housing benefit or housing element of universal credit to help pay their rent. One of the key issues facing our clients when the majority are on low income and or in receipt of housing benefit or universal credit is finding accommodation that they can afford. Shortfall in rent is a common problem. Local housing allowance, that's LHA, is the rent figure usually used to work out housing benefit or the housing element of universal credit for most private tenants. LHA rates are based on the number of bedrooms a household is allowed. And then I've got a table of comparisons here. I'm only going to read one out as an example, but the circulated information will have more detail. So, for example, in a two-bedroom property, that is £679.99 allowed a month, okay? There has been a recent article in Devon Live that states that rental prices have increased in the area. Many clients state that they've looked at private accommodation but cannot afford it, as what is on offer is not affordable. A research from November 2020 shows that Exeter has seen the highest increase in average rent across the whole of England over the past 5 years. Average rent in the city has jumped an incredible 39% in 5 years, according to findings from internal rental marketplace Spot at Home. According to numbers from the Office for National Statistics, in 2015, the average monthly rental stood at £853. It has gone up to £1,201, a £337 difference, and is still rising. So we've got, I've got some figures from home.co.uk for Exeter. The Exeter market rent summary on the 1st of June 2021. Total properties in Exeter for rent were 251, and properties for rent in Exeter listed over the last 14 days were 42, and the average property rent in Exeter were £1,003 per calendar month, and the median rent was £849 per calendar month. hopefully we've got those on the screen for you. So you can actually see, looking at all that information, it's looking very dire for those people who are looking for cheaper properties. There's huge pressure in Exeter. So as evidenced, average shortfall between a market rent and the maximum amount payable in private rental is £200 per month or more. So for example, for a 2-bedroom property, it's £679.99. That's the housing allocation, whilst the average rent is actually £997 per calendar month. So that's £320 more than is being allowed either through housing benefit or universal credit. So there is pressure in Exeter in the private rental with high competition for properties, and confidence in tenants is sadly low. The expanding student market has significantly inflated larger family property market as higher income and greater security from parental guarantors can be gained through shared student lets. Research released in December 2020 shows the demand for property in Exeter more than doubled since the easing of lockdown restrictions and the introduction of a stamp duty holiday. Recent housing access team inquiries with estate agents have shown that houses are being snapped up within a month of coming onto the market. Many from the landlords who were previously letting their properties and want to sell now, making a huge profit. There are sometimes more than 100 applications for rented property. So it's, I'm sorry to have depressed you all with that. So the third part of Councillor Atkinson's question was, if there is a gap between provision and housing such that it could lead to homelessness and hardship as a city, how can we work with the private sector and social landlords and other agencies and housing advice services to improve the situation in the short to medium term? Exeter is a small city and access to affordable private sector housing is therefore limited. The housing access officers approach all letting agents and known local landlords to establish why they are reluctant to offer properties to applicants who are on low income and or in receipt of housing benefit or universal credit. Perception of risk by private landlords by letting to those people, especially feelings of insecurity of rent payments, was stated as a major reason for avoiding renting to low income, including homeless clients. Landlords clearly perceive a greater risk is associated with letting to housing benefit and universal credit claimants and homeless people. There's a risk of arrears, damage to property and other breaches of tenancy, difficulty managing these tenants, problem with benefit administration. Landlords generally prefer to rent to tenants who are low risk and have previous renting history, if not exemplary records. Some landlords cannot let their properties to these clients, and the majority of them are in receipt of housing benefits or universal credit, as some insurance companies will not cover these groups or ask for higher premiums if the property was let to an HV claimant. There's an increased deposit and at least 6 weeks in rent advance, guarantors and references. Sadly, some mortgage lenders still don't let landlords who have mortgage loans with them to let their properties to tenants who are on benefits. However, the Housing Access team works hard to access not only affordable private rented accommodation, but also a range of alternative forms of accommodation such as almshouses, hard-to-let social housing, or accommodation provided by partner organisations such as St Petrons. The HADS team advertises for private landlords through a range of outlets including social media, as well as more traditional ways such as leaflets in council tax bills and at local libraries, etc. Once a potential landlord contacts our service with a suitable property, the HAD team can undertake the entire process needed, from property inspections to drafting tenancy agreements and undertaking the tenancy sign-up if needed. In Exeter's very competitive market, HAD has been building its reputation for reliability and support by assisting the landlords in resolving any arising problems. So that's a bit of good news. has focused on developing a right to private rented sector access scheme, so that's PRSAN, with the main aims and objectives of securing suitable and affordable accommodation for clients and sustainment of potential tenancies. The Housing Access Together scheme has been set up to assist people who approach us for help in securing accommodation in the private rented sector. HATS work closely with a wide range of landlords as well as partner agencies, both in terms of accessing suitable accommodation and in maintaining these tenancies. We have a fund available to help cover rent in advance or deposits needed, so that's really important that we're doing that. Removal costs and covering costs of furniture if needed. We work with a wide range of homeless and or potentially homeless clients, from single people to large families, as well as accessing private rented or other forms of accommodation. We work with clients and landlords to maintain these tenancies, providing support service should these tenancies experience any difficulties. It is also important to address clients' expectations, which can sometimes be unrealistic or very focused on accessing social housing. Many homeless or threatened with homelessness clients are still prepared to hold out for social tenancy and are reluctant to accept realistic expectations or even apply for social housing in the neighbouring areas close to Exeter. Many are still apprehensive about living in the private rented sector, as private rental accommodation is dominated by a lack of long-term security with short tenancy agreements and little protection against rent rises. A multifaceted approach is needed to understand and tackle local issues when it comes to private rental sector current circumstances in Exeter. HATS, together with other teams within Housing Needs Team, review regular plans of action with a range of options to increase the supply of private rental accommodation and prevent homelessness arising from private rental sector housing, whilst meeting the duties of the Homelessness Reduction Act. Although it is a significant daily task, we are becoming more competitive in Exeter's very challenging market. Current work streams include trialling third-party property management to act as the middle agent for brokering private rental sector property to homelessness clients and remodelling the social letting scheme with charitable partners. So you can see it's a really, really challenging scenario, and we are working very hard to do the best we can for our clients. So the fourth part of Councillor Atkinson's question was, what lessons can we learn from housing schemes like the Exeter City Community Trust initiative? Well, just to clarify this to people tuning in from who are not councillors, this is an initiative which is the charitable arm of the Exeter City Football Club. I did circulate a briefing on this to all councillors on the 18th of June, so you have got more information about it. It's worth noting that the City Council was not pivotal to the planning or operation of this particular scheme. It hasn't commissioned any part of the service nor provided any direct or indirect funding for it. And the City Council has not been asked to give any direction in any aspect of the scheme, setting up including property identification or design of the model and its operation going forward. That said, we welcome this initiative and the provision of approximately 100 supported living places. We have provided assistance to this initiative with regard to helping them with the referral process. So they're taking some advice and lessons perhaps from Exeter City Council, but we are also learning from them. It's also worth noting that we learn lessons. This is any organisation involved in this sort of work from one another, sharing good practice. With housing scheme providers, for example, the YMCA and other local authorities. And for example, I participated in a webinar only this week run by the local government information unit on homelessness and the challenges in towns like Exeter. And so that's how we learn. We learn from one another. We're always learning. answers your question, Councillor Atkinson. And I will be circulating hard copy of this to you all. There's a lot to take in.
I think we'll need it. Thank you very much. That's an extremely detailed, virtually a presentation, which I think is a very important and useful one. So yes, a hard copy would be very useful. Councillor Atkinson, do you have a supplementary?
Well, just to thank you for that extremely detailed, comprehensive and reply about the difficulties this city is currently facing and the amazing steps that you were undertaking as portfolio holder to address these issues together with the executive officers. I thank you very, very much. My supplementary question is, can you assure me that these low-paid, vulnerable residents of this accommodation, including those on universal credit who are entitled to local housing access, they will all be rehoused, and none of them will become homeless as a result of this initiative to address homelessness, which I fully support. I just want your assurance that the constituents who live in my ward in these properties will not be found on the streets homeless. Thank you.
But if they follow the guidance that I've already given here in terms of approaching, I know that in this particular example that arrangements were made for them to be given advice and support by the, I can't remember the organisation, but they can also contact the City Council, and I believe I did indicate that in my email exchange with you, that they should be advised to contact the City Council.
I just don't want to fall through the gap between these various agencies, and I've welcomed some private assurances on that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you, Councillor Williams.
I'd just like to thank the officers for preparing this very, very detailed response and all the statistics. I think it's really helpful. And the credit, give them so much credit for the hard work and effort that goes into resolving this really challenging problem that we face. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think it'll be something we want to read in more details. There's a lot to take in and some pretty eye-watering figures upon that as well. So thank you, Councillor Williams, and thank you to the team for all the information they provided. We're going to move on to our next question, which is a question for the portfolio holder for City Management, Councillor Harvey, and it comes from myself. Please could the appropriate portfolio holder, director or officer advise whether the council or Devon Wildlife Trust has any data or information on the success of the Swift Tower on the Paris Street roundabout in attracting these migrating birds during this time of the year?
Thank you, Councillor Vizard. The question says, the appropriate portfolio holder, director or officer. I'm not entirely sure who the appropriate portfolio holder for bird watching is. I'm not sure we have that. I think it falls under leisure, and therefore Councillor Wood. But however, I will endeavour to answer your question, Councillor Vizard. We at the City Council have no specific information about the use of the Swift Tower, but we asked our colleagues with whom we have a very close relationship with Devon Wildlife Trust. They responded that the routine monitoring of the site has been halted and disrupted by the pandemic and has not as yet returned and restarted. The sounds to attract swifts are still being broadcast on the timer, but the time taken for swifts to colonise an artificial swift nest can be as long as 7 years or more. Anecdotally, it is suggested that the site hasn't been used by swifts as yet, but has and continues to be used by other birds, which you may know more than I, being a city centre resident. There are swifts nesting on the Jury's Inn Hotel, so they are nearby, and it is hoped they will make use of the towers soon.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey. I don't have a supplementary, but that's very interesting to know. We should look out for them now. It's fantastic birds, and their arrival in usually around May is always a moment of hope, I think, in the year, and summer coming on. So thank you. That's really helpful. I think you're going to stay where you are because we have another councillor question for you, Councillor Harvey. That's Councillor Michael Mitchell.
Will any trial regarding the new waste collection service involve a range of different routes within the city to ensure that the new service will be available to all households in Exeter? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. The answer is yes.
Thank you very much. A contrasting response to our recent question.
Don't think we need that one right.
Councillor Mitchell, do you have a supplement?
I do have a supplementary. Many residents, Exeter residents, diligently recycle using their green bins. What assurance can the portfolio holder give that materials recycled by local residents do not end up in landfill in the UK or abroad?
Not entirely sure, Councillor Mitchell, what sort of answer you're looking for here. What I can tell you is that, as you well know, we have a materials reclamation facility, which we have a group of people who work extraordinarily hard to sort out the materials that come through the green recycling bins, which ensure, and Councillor Mitchell knows this, which ensure that they are sold as a premium product across the world, because their quality is of the highest quality. I can go further and say that the Waste Collection Service is working on a commercial basis with large organisations across the city, and our USP, or unique selling point, is the quality and assurance that we give to those organisations that their waste will be recycled in the most appropriate fashion in order to ensure the most secure disposal of that recycling material that we possibly can, and to achieve the highest possible price for it.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. We move on to another question for you. This one comes from Councillor Sparling. Councillor Sparling.
Thank you. In October 2019, Council approved the expenditure of 1.5 million to improve the MRF, showing a return on investment over 3 years on the capital costs. What is the new budget for upgrading the MRF and why? And what is the expected period for a return on investment to recoup capital costs, please?
Thank you, Councillor Sparling. There will be a report coming to Executive, I believe it is next week, talking about the situation with regard to the recycling and waste collection service. As you will all be well aware, since October 2019 we've had the pandemic and significant change in people's shopping, buying, waste habits and their working habits. We have also, as has been mentioned to this committee in the past, experienced serious illness amongst our senior management staff, and the fact I have brought to this committee on several occasions previously, and I appreciate that some of you have not been members at that time, is that throughout the pandemic we have not missed one single bin collection. Not one. That is an absolutely staggering piece of work by the team, and they simply need to be recognised for that. But what it does mean is that that's what the team and the management team are doing, and they have no resources available to have worked on the new service which we had approved, as Councillor Sparling rightly said, in October 2019. However, they have pulled out all the stops. They have looked at what has happened throughout the pandemic. They have looked at their own current service throughout the pandemic, and they have worked out a proposal which is in the Executive Committee report for next week. So one of the issues that we have, which I think Councillor Sparling is really looking for, is that there is a cost to the authority of approximately £200,000 per annum through the use of secondary birth providers, i.e. we take our recycled stuff somewhere else, due to machinery breakdowns with our MRF, which has been in position since 2003, so that's nearly, 17, 18 years it's been there. So therefore, it's important for the efficiency of the MRF itself that there's investment in the equipment in order to improve reliability and result in productivity, and to improve the working conditions for the staff, which is something which is very close to my heart. It should help to increase income, as I've just described, and the resulting reduction in the reliance of secondary MRF providers and their associated costs. However, at this particular stage, there is no payback anticipated for the new recycling project because we're seeing it as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Sparling, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. How long do you think the MRF will be in the current location in light of the proposals for Liverpool Exeter to redevelop Marsh Barton, and is this a value for money investment?
I think I'm going to quote my colleague, Councillor Wright, from earlier, and I think the answer is who knows? Right. There are a considerable number of hurdles to overcome before the Liverpool Exeter project can see full fruition. Investment from various places, planning processes, etc., etc. What I can say about Marsh Barton and the Liverpool Exeter programme is if you look there, you will find there are commercial companies who are investing heavily in building new projects on the Marsh Barton site close to the MRF. So I would suggest that there is strong possibility that it will happen shortly. The impact of Liverpool Exeter upon the MRF and the total waste collection service is something which officers are very well aware of and are taking great account of throughout their deliberations and procedures. And I'm afraid I can't and I wouldn't give you any timescales.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Sparling, your second question, please.
Thank you. After consideration of a number of options in October 2019, Council adopted option 4 on the grounds of lowest cost, lowest net carbon emissions, improved recycling rate and meeting most residents' wishes to have food waste and glass collected for recycling at the curbside. The other alternative option to delay a decision on implementing a service change pending publication of forthcoming statutory guidance on consistency in waste collection services and the likely impact of extended producer responsibility was explicitly rejected. Are you now recommending overturning that decision that Council made?
I'm glad you mentioned extended producer responsibility, known to us as EPR. There's also something called DRS, which is nothing to do with Formula One racing cars, which some of you may well know about. That's deposit return system. That means a bottle like this, you'll pay something extra for it, and you will be able to return it to get your deposit back. There are various different squeals, particularly from rural councils, about how on earth are people going to do this, and there is consultation going on at the moment. So the government are working on a government proposal regarding of waste and recycling. Included in that was a very powerful discussion that I attended where the word waste was decided not to be used, because what may be waste in your household may simply be surplus in my household, and I can use it for something else. So for example, if anybody here has a punctured bicycle inner tube, I will very happily take it off your hands and use it for various things that I can do in my allotment or in various other places. So some people say I shouldn't talk about waste anymore, I should just talk about surplus. But I think the answer to your question, Councillor Sparling, is that there is a great deal of movement in this particular area from government, and we are having to get our crystal ball out. We're having to look at several things, several ways of working and doing things. So I wouldn't use language like recommending overturning that decision. I think I would say that we've moved on. I think that the situation, the environment, the context where we are, what people have, if you look, for example, at I can say Teambridge because it's been in the local press. Teambridge's difficulties, they've just introduced a curbside service like the one that we expected to introduce, and they simply can't cope with the cardboard, and people are being told to take their cardboard themselves to the recycling sites with the increased use of carbon emissions, miles run by private cars, etc., etc., etc. So what I have also said to this committee in the past, and those members of you who were here at those times, is that I see it as my role to guard Exeter's reputation and finances as jealously as I can. And I am not going to be rushed into bringing forward a scheme which I think is inappropriate. I will take as long as I feel that it is necessary to ensure that we have the most appropriate scheme for Exeter, bearing in mind that the government are currently working on developing things, and the fact that we are working on the development of our solar field up by the did he say incinerator then? Waste from energy from waste plant. So that is where we are, Councillor Sparling. We are working as hard as we possibly can to ensure that we deliver the most cost-effective and the best service that we possibly can for Exeter residents, given that playing field is changing all around us.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Sparling, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Can you tell me how do you view Exeter's reputation on recycling, and also what your view is on the increase in the recycling rate that the new service will bring, and by when?
Right, by when? I'm not going to tell you, right, because I told you I'm not going to tell you, so I won't tell you by when. We are expecting and hoping for an increase of something like 20%. Our recycling rate is currently at around 30%, and we're hoping to get up to around 50%. However, as I often say in this committee, and many of you will recall, the waste hierarchy is reduce, reuse, recycle. Recycle is at the top of the waste hierarchy list, right? Exeter City residents put into the waste, the energy from waste plant, considerably less per household than most district councils in the country, and in fact we are the 9th lowest city to do that. And that measure is a far more important measure. The amount of stuff you actually throw into that energy from waste plant is a far more important figure than how much you recycle. Recycling, of course, is very important, of course, but it only helps to reduce the other figure. That's what it does, right? And we are one of the best in the country at doing that. So the answer to the question is, it's currently about 30 to 50% when the service is up and fully rolling, but as I say, I don't see that as the most important statistic. I see the amount of waste from households as the most important statistic.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And your final question, please, Councillor Sparling.
Thank you. The operational issues of the MRF have affected the financial performance of the MRF, and previous reports for 2018-19 indicated an overspend of £213,300. Was that the final figure? And what was the overspend or necessary increase in budget required for 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 to deal with ongoing operational problems?
Right, while we read the numbers out, there they are.
Sorry, can I just check what was the...
Add to the table we're seeing.
Don't ask me how the accountants sprinkle their magic dust over that to make all that balance, because I don't understand it. Right? Budget of 393,000 and overspend of £500,000. I presume there must be underspend in other areas with regards to this. So I need to explain to me some more about financial magic stuff, but that's those are the numbers.
We'll make sure those numbers are distributed as well to members. Councillor Sparling, do you have any supplementary?
Yes, thank you. How will the council fund the increase in budget for the new MRF? And even with a loan, there will be an increase in loan repayments. So what services are you proposing to cut to fund this?
I think, again, that's a question for Section 151 officer as to how that will actually be funded. But I think you've probably got somewhere closer with that, with extended borrowing to... But I don't know. The answer is the 151 officer will be able to explain that in more detail. So we can get an answer to that supplementary from the 151 officer, Matt? Yeah.
I'm sure we can do that. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Thank you, Councillor Sparling. Thank you to all the members who've raised questions in advance. I'm minded of the time we've taken on these, which are very important questions and good and detailed answers. We do have our portfolio holders, 4 of them with us, for any burning questions that have not been submitted in advance, but bear in mind you won't necessarily get a very detailed answer. So I'm not encouraging you, but if you have a very burning question, now's your chance to speak up. Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay. Thank you very much to our portfolio holders and to questions for those. We'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the Spotlight Review Consultation Charter. And John Street's going to introduce this in place of Bruce. Thank you, Bruce Luxton, who sends his apologies. So over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, I've picked up the mantle this afternoon to present this report, which is fairly self-explanatory, I hope, particularly bearing in mind the details contained in paragraph 8. But just by way of background, the consultation charter was presented to the Executive in February of this year, where it was felt appropriate that that should be subject to a spotlight review before progressing to full council for consideration. That spotlight review met with 5 Scrutiny members taking part in that discussion, and their comments and feedback were, as my colleague Bruce has told me, were extremely useful and helpful and have been included in the revised version of the charter which you see before you this evening, which will also then be going on to the Executive next week for recommendation onto Council at the end of this month, later in this month. I'll do my best to try and answer any questions that there may well be. But as I say, if not, we'll make a note of them and pass them on to Mr. Luxton as and when we get the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Yes, well, we do have some questions, including some tabled in advance from Councillor Spalding, which I'll come to in a moment, if I may. I'm going to start, if that's all right, with Councillor Atkinson, because you chaired the Spotlight Review. Did you want to make any comments or ask any questions, Councillor Atkinson?
Yes, I just wanted to say that we had a very productive cross-party meeting to discuss this consultation and improving this consultation policy, and the report that is before you, I think, has the unanimous recommendations of all of those cross-party personnel who attended that working group, and I commend it to you in its brevity, so it's easy for members of the community to read and understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Atkinson. I think the only other member of that Spotlight Review who's here is Councillor Ward. Did you have anything to add? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to come to the questions submitted in advance from Councillor Spalding, and I'll come to you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Spalding, your first question, please.
Thank you. Does the consultation charter include planning applications?
The answer is they're covered by specific regulations relating to town and country planning, so it wouldn't be included in that on planning applications.
Councillor Spalding, your second question.
Thank you. How does the council plan to engage those who don't have digital access throughout the consultation process?
I'm reading the answers on the screen as I use. So the consultation plans will need to set out how all audiences will be consulted. Previous consultations have included a range of methods, including public meetings, some of which are taking place in this very room, exhibitions, focus groups, targeted mailings, face-to-face and telephone interviews, as well as printed material.
And your third question, Councillor Spalding.
Thank you. How will officers be supported to assess and address the carbon/environmental impacts of both the proposals and the consultations?
Again, officers will work with the Council's net zero team, which is being proposed to Executive next week to be established, which will to obtain guidance and advice on assessing and addressing the carbon environmental impacts of both the proposals and consultations. So they'll work with the in-house team to get that information.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Councillor Mitchell next.
Thank you. I did write to Bruce and to John on this sometime ago when the papers first come out. Excellent document as it is, I still think there's one element that needs to be added to it, and that's what are the criteria for a public consultation. It's not clear why one would call a public consultation within the document. We have examples but no criteria. And related to that is the mechanism involved in calling a public consultation. There's no guidance on that. The form of that just relates to an officer suggesting that we have public consultation. And I would have thought we would wish to have a mechanism whereby members or committees of the council can call for public consultation, and we might also want a situation where the public, possibly through this committee and through questions, could suggest public consultations. And I just think that's an element, a layer that needs to be added on to this otherwise excellent document. And the separate point I want to raise, which is similar to Councillor Sparling, I didn't know she was going to raise it, it would seem to me that once this has been worked through, it does provide a template for us as an authority considering a voluntary code of consultation in regard to planning applications, larger planning applications. I only mention this because currently there is no guidance for applicants, and it's left to applicants to decide how they consult. And I would have thought if we had a voluntary code of conduct based on a similar pattern to this, it would encourage developers to use our code and therefore involve the community in decision making about particularly large-scale developments of the subdivision. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell. John, do you want to respond as best you can to that, or take those questions away?
I think the only element that I might be able to try and point Councillor Mitchell and the committee towards is the element about how consultation can be proposed. One of those elements is contained within the consultation charter itself at the end of paragraph 1, which says that all consultations can be proposed through this scrutiny process, so through the scrutiny committee like we're in at the moment. As to the more detailed questions that Councillor Mitchell has asked, I would have to bow to my colleague Mr Luxton to respond to that. But again, reiterating the point that was made earlier about planning committee, planning applications being outside of the scope of the consultation, being delivered by a different method.
And also planning outside the scope of
Yes,
the scrutiny committee, unfortunately, so I think we might have to park that one. On those points, before I think Councillor Henson, you wanted to speak, but on those points, did anyone have any views? So I think what Councillor Mitchell has suggested, it may be a formal proposal, I'm not sure, which is we have, one of the questions is what are the criteria for public consultations, and they should be set out. What is the mechanism for calling a public consultation? We've heard that the scrutiny process is one, but members or indeed the public. Councillor Atkinson, just responding on that point? Okay.
Thank you. Yes, we had a very full discussion on this, and that was unanimous, including members of the Progressive Party, Conservatives and Labour. And agreed that you couldn't give chapter and verse on everything. You needed to give discretion and flexibility. If you set something in stone, it would be wrong. And we felt that that was a phrase, and I think it was a phrase in the scrutiny report that we all had access to and read, and that's what the working group, cross-party working group, finally agreed on. Therefore, I think to raise this now, outside of these discussions on the working group doesn't really assist, because we had a full, and it's very clear there, and any member here does have the right to raise questions on behalf of their constituents if they think that that hasn't been followed. So there is a scrutiny process which goes with that as well. I think that's the main one that I wanted to ask. I can't remember what the second one was. I'm just speaking as a chair.
About the mechanism for calling a public consultation via the public, I think you've answered that.
I mean, it's part and parcel of when officers do anything. They consider that very cogent point. They consider the governing principles, and they consider whether there is a legitimate expectation that we should consult. It was accepted by members of the working group that you could not consult on everything, because we'd be weighed under with consultations that wouldn't actually do anything. Obviously, important matters will be consulted on, taking into account these criteria in that And the process is set out in here in relation to the mechanisms for consultation, very clearly laid out in this following the guiding principles. And in relation to something that Councillors Sparling said, there is, including the documentation, is the implementation plan, which has to be filled in, which will be scrutinised. And also there is a qualities impact assessment which will take into account, which has to be completed as well as the implementation plan. So all of these bases in these questions have already been considered by the working party, implemented and accepted by officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson. Any further comments on those specific points that Councillor Mitchell has raised? I will let you come back, Councillor Mitchell. I think it is worth just remembering that the Scrutiny Committee is here to review the work of the Spotlight review itself and can comment and improve and make recommendations. But also I do take your point that there are members there on that committee present and the rest of us were not party to those discussions. So perhaps we just need to consider those two things in balance. Councillor Mitchell, you just want to come back to that point and I will bring in Councillor Hess.
As Councillor Actors know, we don't operate with the market. I'm not responsible for what other members of other parties say on working parties. I'm just involved. My concern is the phrase, we will normally decide. And I'm just seeking clarification on who the we are and clarification on what criteria we would have to normally decide. And I believe in the document there's going to be something, there's a public document on behalf of this authority. We ought to lay out clearly the criteria for making a decision, hold a public consultation, and the methodology by which we arrive at that decision. And clearly, at the moment, it is officers involved. We as a committee can be involved, but I believe there's greater clarity there, and there's the ability to allow the public to be involved in this. We are representatives of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. If you want to suggest a proposal, if you want to spend a moment to write something, I'm happy to take that as a proposal by this committee this evening. I'll come back to you if I may, while you have time to do that. Exactly, I'll bring Councillor. Absolutely. Thank you for waiting, Councillor Henson.
Sorry, I think I would support it. I think if indeed it's only strengthening the document, in my view. If you're strengthening it, I'm quite happy to support that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Before we come back to you, I think we've got a specific proposal. That would be very helpful. I have made a note. If there's some wording, that would be helpful. In the meantime, I can take any further comments from members if they want to come in.
We're proposing that the section is added to the document to outline the criteria for public consultation and the mechanism by which a public consultation is called. I would leave that to the officer to draft that.
Okay. Have we got that, Howard? If you want to read that back, that would be great.
To outline the criteria for public consultation and set out the mechanisms for calling a public consultation.
I suggest we simply put this to the vote of the committee. It isn't a decision. We need to remember that this is potentially a recommendation back to the executive where this will go. You're right, saying, John. So that whether you accept that as a sort of additional point that this committee recommends to the executive. So all those in favour of the proposed recommendation, raise your hands now.
5 in favour, Chair.
And all those against, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against.
And Chair will abstain in that case. Thank you very much, all. That's not carried. Before we move on, are there any further points on this item, or are we happy now to allow this to go back to the executive? I think I'm not seeing any further hands. So thank you for introducing the gentleman. Thank you, Councillor Atkinson, for your input. Councillor Warren,
Raise a point of order, Chair. Chair, the acoustics in this hall are absolutely abysmal. I just wonder whether we could ask the officers to look for different, particularly with someone on
storing the place up outside. But even so, with the echo, I'm finding it very difficult to hear a lot of meeting. I know there's something you can do about the building, but I do wonder whether we can look for another venue or something for future meetings.
I'm sure John's heard you. This noise is really, really off-putting. I'm really sorry. If everybody can make an extra effort to speak up, that would help a little bit. Make sure you're directing to your microphones. But we are where we are tonight. But point taken, Councillor Warwick. Yeah, it's not ideal. Councillor Atkinson.
I just wanted to support Councillor Warwick. I'm a deaf person. I have 2 hearing aids and I can't hear a thing. So it's something with this that we can't be remedied just by people speaking up. There is something seriously wrong with the acoustics in the building, and I have very expensive, well-tuned hearing aids, I can assure you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, point taken. It is a serious and important matter. If people haven't heard something this evening, please let me know. We will try and we will repeat it. If this was a particular point, is everybody comfortable and happy that we've done what we've done on agenda item 7?
I think one of the Councillor Williams can find the earliest one.
Shall we start the meeting again? Okay, all right, well, point noted, thank you. We move now on to item 8 on our agenda, which is John again, and John's going to present on the role of scrutiny. Straight over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll try and be as clear as I can. Apologies for next door's building works, which is part of the recovery of the city centre, getting the public house back up to be operating, which has been on hold for at least the last year. But I will say that whilst it says presentation on scrutiny, it's actually just an update on the situation that we find ourselves in. Obviously last year was what we might consider to be a variance from the normal for scrutiny and indeed for everything. And it was decided very early on to concentrate on only COVID matters during the pandemic. And the members will recall that that worked extremely well during those difficult times. And we are hopeful now, coming to the end of those difficult times, and tonight's meeting is, I think, a good start to that process. And indeed, that last item that we've just had with regards to the spotlight review is one of the very many ways that scrutiny can be involved in things going forward. But I'd also point out that I should mention that the current scrutiny committee structure was only set up in October 2019, when it was agreed at that time that there would be a review after a year. Again, unfortunately, and I hate to mention that COVID word again, that was put on hold, although the leader did indicate at the most recent executive meeting that he wished that review to be undertaken over the summer, and that will now be done, and any comments upon that will be presented back to the Executive and full Council in the autumn of this year. Having said all of that, just a gentle reminder about the role of scrutiny as per our current Constitution, I think. I believe that there are 3 distinct roles that scrutiny holds. The first, which we've seen in great evidence this evening with 3 portfolio holders being put under some detailed questioning, is to hold the Executive to account. The second, as per the Constitution, is to monitor budgets and performance review of services. And the third, as we've seen with the consultation charter, is to assist in the development of policy and review effectiveness of that policy. So we've done that, I think, quite well with the current charter, which will then go on to Executive and Council in the next few weeks. Your specific areas of reference for this committee are set out on page 12 of the agenda, and are particularly relevant, I believe, for you to remind yourself on. But I believe there are also other ways that scrutiny can be effective. It's not just committees like this, it's also the other areas that we've got. The first, again, holding to the Executive to account, would be quite a drastic one, but is what's called a call-in. For that, you would need to have 7 scrutiny members, any members of scrutiny committees, no matter which one, would need to notify me of a reason why they feel a decision taken by the Executive is not correct. There are set procedures within the Constitution, set rules within the Constitution as to how that can be done. That's quite drastic, that's quite a stick approach, shall I say. The carrot approach would be to review the Council's forward plan of decisions which is undertaken. My colleague Mark Devon circulates that every month to say what decisions are coming up or what matters are going to be considered over the next few months, in fact a number of months in advance, that are coming to the executive, and also some ones that officers may well take as well. And that's an opportunity for you to have a look at that, and also ask for those matters to be brought to a scrutiny committee ahead of time for consideration of those matters. So a bit like your consultation charter, the way that was dealt with over the last few months. And the third, and again we've already touched on that this evening, is the involvement of task and finish groups, where they can look at specific matters in greater detail than can be done in a scrutiny committee of this sort of size. And again, we had some very good examples of that over the last year. One in particular I recall looking at the Buller statue and its future going forwards. That was a very detailed approach which took a number of meetings to come forward with a view which was presented at the end of the day. But I will mention that scrutiny needs to be done in a way which is effective, and a way which is cross-party, and a way which is making the best use of resources that are available, member resources as well as officer resources. And as such, the new scrutiny approach adopted the appointment of what's called a scrutiny programme board, which consists of the chair and deputy chair of both this and the other scrutiny committee, together with a further scrutiny member, who will review and look at every request for matters to be considered by the scrutiny committees and review them against criteria. And you will have all, I think, over the last week or so, have had a pro forma sent to you to suggest items suggest a way in which an item could be presented and put forward, which details the resource implications, the timescale implications, the reasons for doing it, how it meets the corporate objectives of the council, etc. That will then go to my colleagues in the senior management board for them to review it against those very criteria, but also very importantly to see what resource implications there are for such. It will then go to the scrutiny programme board, who will take on board those comments of the SMB as well as the comments from the members themselves and decide what should go forward in that instance for consideration by a scrutiny committee, by a task and finish group or whatever, ensuring that there is an equality as much as possible of workload between the two scrutiny committees. We've got a meeting of that scrutiny programme board in a couple of weeks' time, where I hope that that call for action that there has been most recently with those pro formas going out will prompt a number of responses coming forward for the programme board to consider for matters going forward, primarily for the next sets of scrutiny committees. So I think that's basically that. I just wanted to remind members of the role of scrutiny. You won't be surprised to hear me say that I believe that scrutiny has a very important role to play in the council's democratic process, and we will continue to build on it, as well as gaining good practice from elsewhere and always learning from other people's experiences to try and achieve an effective scrutiny process within the organisation. I'm happy to take any comments or questions you may have, Chair.
Thank you very much, John. Can I get the ball rolling? Just to ask very quickly, there are, I think, a number of issues already or with the Programme Scrutiny Board which have been tabled or discussed or raised at the scrutiny committees over the past few months. Are the people who have raised those going to be contacted? Are they expected to fill out the pro forma now, and will they be prompted to do so?
Indeed, they were the first of the members of scrutiny to be contacted with the new pro forma, so that they were ahead of the game. They'd already put their points forward, but to be fair, to be equal and fair, they've been asked to fill in those forms so we get all of those details which will come to the programme board. They will be taken as a priority because they've already been waiting for a while before others may well come forward for consideration. But it would be good to have a number of them coming forward to a meeting we've got in, I think, a fortnight's time.
Thank you. Yes, that answers that question. I want those to be kind of to drop off the list as a result of the new system. So certainly all members are encouraged to think of topics and use that pro forma. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, John. This is a relatively new process for us and for the officers working under this new system. Would you suggest that we formally have a scrutiny review period built in into our cycle so that we can look at the way things are working, whether amendments need to be made, and then a route to make the changes if they're needed.
As I think I alluded to in my introduction, when the new way of working was introduced in October 2019, a review was scheduled in for a year after that. That didn't take place then because of COVID, but will be taking place over the summer. That will be done by the Governance Review Board, which will look at all aspects of the way the committees have been working, the extension that we had at that time for public questions as well, which was into executive and full council, and all other aspects, maybe even looking at the petition scheme to make sure that it's fit for purpose and effective at the moment that it is. All of those will include the review of the scrutiny process and how it's been delivered. There'll be a cross-party group. Group leaders will soon be asked to nominate or re-nominate those that have been sat on that. That will then come back to the executive and get back to full council for approval at the end of the day. So members will all have an opportunity to have that involvement at those opportunities. But yes, there is a review and it will be taking place over the summer.
Secondly, and finally, what role do you see for the annual scrutiny report?
We haven't had one yet, so I'm looking from some inspiration, should we say, as for an annual report. I think it's a way to ensure that all councillors, irrespective of whether they're scrutiny members or executive members, because we don't always see all executive members or all scrutiny committees, is a way for them to understand what the scrutiny have been looking at over the last year, what's been taken on into account, what changes there may well have been through the scrutiny process to the decisions that may well have been taken as well. But again, that would probably be something which could be better reviewed in the Governance Review Board, and taking on board your comments earlier on the consultation charter, etc., maybe come down with some criteria as to exactly what we're looking for and what that annual work programme or annual review will look like.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments on what we've heard? Particularly, we welcome newer members if you had any thoughts, initial thoughts on the scrutiny, particularly on both, I think, which is helpful. Any first impressions, anything that you can be blunt, anything that doesn't feel very good? What about training? If you had training, is that good? Just give you opportunity, it may be early days, I appreciate it. And now everybody's very happy, John. That's good. Everybody loves scrutiny, and either that or they're all very tired, which is also understandable. Okay, last chance for any questions or comments. Otherwise, we'll wrap that up. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks, John. Much appreciated. I think it's food for thought, and I know people will have a look at that pro forma and consider topics for discussion, which we would very much welcome. And I know some of the items tonight, I'm sure, will be headed back our way, particularly curbside collection. I'm sure we will see that post-executive coming back to this scrutiny. So, yeah, lots of interesting topics to pick up on. That just brings me to the date of the next meeting, which is scheduled for the 7th of October, Thursday, 7th of October at 5:30. I hope it will be a better experience than tonight. I'm very sorry about that. I don't think it was really acceptable, but it's suddenly gone quiet now, of course, the moment we finish. I'm not sure why they're working quite so late, so that was unexpected, but I appreciate that was not an acceptable experience for people. I'm sorry about that. We will look at alternative options if that's going to persist, because it's clearly important that members can hear and feel able to contribute properly. So thank you for your forbearance with that tonight, really. It wasn't great, but your contributions were, and thank you to our portfolio holders, and to you, John, and to Howard, as always, and Councillor Mitchell, and to you. So have a good evening, and we will see you in October at other committees and occasions before that. Thank you very much indeed.